Record. Lovely. So welcome everyone. I want to say a big thank you first of all on behalf of my social enterprise, Rocking Your Teens. Some of you have made donations and those will go towards building resilience, inspiring and raising aspirations in teenagers. If you do want to find out more about my social enterprise, Rocking Your Teens, go to rockingyourteens.com. So thank you very much for everyone who donated, and welcome to the Bouncing Back from Redundancy, Bullying or Being Fired webinar. My name is Jenny Garrett and I'm an award-winning career coach, author and leadership trainer. My books explore the empowerment of working women and women in leadership roles. And together with my team, we use our years of experience in coaching and leadership to support women and ethnically diverse colleagues to progress in the workplace, as well as supporting majority group leaders in making inclusion happen. The disruption caused by COVID has meant that many businesses couldn't operate in their usual way, and many employees, and maybe you are one of them, couldn't go to work and customers couldn't buy your products or take advantage of your company's services. Some businesses were able to take out a loan to pay for overheads like rent to keep their businesses afloat, but many just couldn't sell things online. And others cut costs by furloughing their employees or letting them go, unfortunately. They simply couldn't carry on running their business without that income coming in. As a result, many people have lost their jobs or part of their income, and unfortunately, it's likely that there will still be more job losses in the coming months. During this session, experienced executive coaches Mark Anderson, Carol Stewart, Janice Taylor, and Hira Ali, all listed in the Diverse Coaching Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from Black, Asian, and minority backgrounds. We'll discuss approaches to help you bounce back from redundancy, bullying, or being fired, or maybe just being out of work for a while. You can find out more about our coaches, the ones that are here, and other coaches from our Diverse Coaching Directory. And my colleague Snetta will be putting the URL into the chat at some point. It's bameexecutivecoachdirectory.co.uk. So how we're going to run this session is that Mark, Carol, Janice and Hira will briefly introduce themselves. I will start off by asking some questions and then we will open it up to you for your questions and your reflections. A couple of you have already sent questions in and we will be answering those first. We will keep an eye on the chat throughout and contribute to the conversation as much as we can, but sometimes the chat does move quite quickly and we miss things. But Snetta will be specifically looking out for questions and we'll be addressing all of the questions that we can in the time allowed. Janice is in demand, so she won't stay for the whole session. She'll be leaving at about 10 to 9, but she will input as much as she can in the time that she's here. And we will be using a hashtag for the event. It's bouncing back. So feel free to tweet or use whichever social media platform you choose using that hashtag bouncing back. And also Snetta will put in the chat our Twitter handles at Ideal Job Coach, at Abound Solutions, at Advancing You, and at Blue Sky 1001. And mine is at Jennifer Garrett. And the coaching directory is at BAME Exec. But you'll find those all in the chat. So I wanted to start off with a poll. It's great to know who's in the room. And I wanted to understand where you're at the moment in terms of your job situation. So I'm launching a poll that hopefully you will see on the screen. So great to know about your work situation. Are you in work and concerned about the stability of your job? Have you been furloughed? Have you just been out of work for a while? Or you're in work at the moment, but it's impacted, your confidence has been impacted due to previous redundancy, bullying or being fired. or something else altogether? And if it's something else altogether, feel free to type in the chat your work situation if you'd like to. And this poll's anonymous, by the way, so we won't know who said what. Just give you a moment. Okay, I like to get to 90% of you completing. So just a couple more would get us to 90%. Okay, well, we're at 32%, 32 out of 84, 32 out of 39 of you, which is 84%. So I'll end that poll and then I'll share the results. So really interesting. The highest percentage are in work, but your confidence has been impacted from previous redundancy, bullying, or being fired. Yeah, and I get that, but actually it can last a long time, those feelings of having your confidence knocked, followed by 31% of you who are out of work, and a small percentage who are other and in work, but concerned about the stability of your role. So thanks very much for sharing that. We know who we're speaking to. A high percentage of people who are either in work and their confidence has been knocked, or out of work at the moment. And I've got one more poll for you that I'd like to ask, just your age range. So again, this is an anonymous poll. We won't know who said what, but it'd be great to know what age you're at. Oh, you're completing this one really quickly. Thank you. Okay. If we can get to the same numbers as before, just a couple more of you to complete it would be fabulous. Okay, I'll end the poll here. Okay, so the highest percentage are in the 45 to 54 age range, 35, followed by 35 to 44, and then quickly followed by the 25 to 34-year-olds. And we have 16% in the 55 to 64 age range. We wanted to ask that question because these things can impact the kind of roles you go for, how you feel about your job search, and also the obstacles to searching for a role as well. So great, thank you so much. It's great to know who's in the room, and that's really helpful for us when we're responding to your questions. So over to you guys. I'd love to hear from my panel a little bit about you, and I'm going to start with Mark. Please do say a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. Yes, so my name is Mark Anderson and I'm a career coach, and I've been coaching for about 20 years now. My work is kind of split really. So I work with adults, and generally I work with adults who are going through some kind of career transition. So normally they come to me because they're in a job, but they're not happy in what they're doing. They want to do something different, but they don't know what to do or where to start. So I work with them with my career coaching programs to help them identify an ideal pathway for them. I also spend time working in schools with young people. So I get to experience work with people who are in their mid-career as well as people who are starting their career journey. And it's really nice having that balance of working with the young people as well as the people who are in their mid-career. And with young people, they're making choices about university or apprenticeships and things like that. So it's tough for them as well, making their decision with a range of options that they have. And what I like about my work is being able to feedback the messages I sometimes get from adults about mistakes that they made when they were younger to the young people that I work with. So it's nice to be able to pass on that experience to the young people. So that's me really.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for and showing us that age range you work with. And hopefully if you keep imparting that knowledge, we'll all be out of work in the future because everyone will know exactly what to do. Carol, over to you.
Hi everybody. So my name is Carol Stewart and I'm an executive career leadership coach, speaker and trainer. And I specialise in coaching senior leaders with a particular emphasis on introverted women. And I coach leaders on how they can improve their leadership effectiveness. And I particularly focus on some of the self-limiting beliefs that prevent leaders from being at their best. So things around imposter syndrome, confidence, how they can develop their leadership presence, how they can be made more influential and impactful as leaders, and with their speaking as well. And I've been doing this for 10 years. But prior to that, I was an employee, worked for the Ministry of Justice, started off in a very junior role, worked my way up to a senior leader, and had responsibility for a group of magistrates courts. And then in 2011, I took voluntary redundancy. Coaching had always been an add-on to what I did as a leader, and I decided that I was going to start my own coaching business. So I had done a lot of in-house coaching training, but I didn't have a formal qualification. I did a master's in coaching psychology when I took redundancy and started my coaching business. And for my research, I looked at what the impact of job loss had on women who were in their mid to late careers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And maybe we have people in the audience who are really interested in that research. So sharing bits from that would be great today. Over to you, Janice, just to let know I muted you, so you will have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. My name's Janice Taylor, and I'm a career coach, and I'm based down in Brighton, and I've been coaching for about 20 years now, running my business, Blue Sky Career Consulting. And I work predominantly with adults who want to change of career and want some clarity about where they want to go next. People tend to find me when they feel a bit stuck and directionless, and I help them to get some clarity, like I said, about where they might want to go, and also plan how they're going to get there. And as I said, I'm an enthusiastic writer as well, so I manage a few blogs around careers and storytelling. So that's me, really. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Janice. And last but not least, Hira. And you'll need to unmute as well, Hira, because I muted you.
Hi, my name is Hira, and I am an author and leadership and career coach. I specialize in women and ethnic minority leadership, and I really love supporting people to smash the glass ceiling and overcome the messy middle. I'm also a writer. I published 2 books in 2019. I published a book on, it's called Her Way to the Top, and talks about internal and external barriers holding women from progressing in their career. And then next month, I'm publishing my second book on allyship, which I'm very excited about. And my experience started from Pakistan, where I'm originally from, and then I moved to Dubai, and then I moved to London. So every time I moved to a different country, I had to start my leadership brand from ground zero and create visibility all over again. So yeah, that's about me.
Fabulous, thank you. Such a wealth of experience with you all. It's fabulous to have you here, and I just can't wait to get straight into the questions, because I know you've got so much to offer. So my first question that I'd like to ask you is, why does redundancy or bullying or being fired hit us so hard? And how can we overcome these feelings? I'm going to start with you, Carol.
Right, so when it comes to particularly job loss has been likened to the grief process. And so when you're going through grief, you go through stages of grief, and job loss is likened to that. It's a loss, like any other loss. And depending as well how long you've worked for the organisation, what social ties you have to the organisation, it can feel like a big loss. And as a result of that, it's about understanding that it is a process that you're going through, and understanding the grief process. And is it okay if I put a link to something that people maybe can look at?
No.
Website, yeah, just to understand a bit more about the grief process. And if you look at the grief process and understand where you're at in that process, the thing is to think about what you can do to move yourself further along, so that you get to a place of acceptance and you accept what is happened to you, and then also get to a place of curiosity where you can start being curious about what is next.
That's fabulous. And that's such a helpful tool, I think, in all aspects of life. And I think it helps you with any kind of change, doesn't it, Carol? So
that's right, yes.
Yeah, I think it's such a good tool to help you come to terms with where you're at. I'll go to you, Hira, next. Why does redundancy, bullying, or being fired hit us so hard? And how do you think we can overcome these feelings?
Any incident which makes us feel as if we are undermined, if you're not being listened to, not being heard to, makes us feel disappointed in ourselves. And I would like to highlight that if you already belong to a marginalized or underrepresented community, or you've had any isolating experiences in the past because of which you have internalized certain barriers such as imposter syndrome and fear of failure and fear of judgment, fear of vulnerability, minority stress, then such incidents only unfortunately seems to multiply the impact they have on you. And I would say that at that point, it is very important to acknowledge your own coping mechanism, because everybody has their own individual way to cope with such situations. So acknowledge your coping mechanism. And after that, you would have to do a lot of work yourself in terms of questioning your own limiting beliefs. And once you're done with that, I would strongly recommend that you share and vent out with somebody, because when you find that you're not in this alone and there are other people with you in this, it really, really helps you overcome the whole grieving process, which Carol has just highlighted.
Thank you. Hira, can you say a bit more about what you mean by limiting beliefs, just in case people are not familiar with what that means?
So limiting beliefs would be things which these are these naughty gremlins in our mind, which always seem to come in and poke us and bother us whenever we're feeling unsure, whenever we're feeling disappointed or frustrated. And these limiting beliefs are things which we tell ourselves that, oh, I'm not good enough, and this was me, and this was my mistake, or putting a lot of blame on yourself, limiting yourself and not acknowledging or separating yourself from the situation and realizing that it's nothing to do with you, it's the situation which is the main problem. So those you can question by questioning the generality of the situation, questioning the authenticity, questioning the impact. And yeah, I also can share a link which can help people understand how they can question their own limiting beliefs in terms of getting over this process and handling it better.
Lovely. Fabulous. Feel free to share any links you wish to. Janice, over to you. And yeah, don't forget to unmute.
Thank you. I think when, especially with, I think my experience is more around redundancy, but I think we can tie up a lot of our self-esteem, our purpose in our roles. So when we lose our roles, it can feel like we're losing quite a bit of ourselves, actually. And I also think there's something about feeling sort of out of control, actually. This is something that's been done to us. So I think that's quite an important thing. And I certainly think that when people are faced with this sort of situation, I think it can help to take a step back and kind of maybe put yourself back in touch with what really matters to you and kind of identify your values. So go back to your core almost, actually, because I think while you're out in the world sort of delivering your role and your work, we can sometimes lose sight of ourselves a little bit. So I think in some situations it can be helpful to just take a step back and take the time to get back in, to get back in touch with your values and what really matters to you. It's not necessarily an easy process, but a necessary one, I think.
Yeah, really helpful. Thank you so much. And Mark?
Yeah, I think it really is a knock on your self-worth and your pride when you are going through, let's say, redundancy or being fired. And, certainly when I've been through it in the past myself, it's, you feel that you don't have value in a sense. I used to take my children to school, do the school run, and I'd see all of these other dads in their suits and they're going off to work afterwards, and you're hoping that no one's going to ask you what you're doing. So it can really knock your pride when you're going through something like that. Not to mention having to go to the job center and signing on and feeling that you're really worthless. And I think in terms of overcoming it, it's really about what you believe about yourself. We've already touched on limiting beliefs, and it's about acknowledging that our self-worth doesn't come from the work that we do. You're not only a worthy person just because you're working. Otherwise, people who are retired or people who are young people don't have a worth. So it's really important to remember that worth and the fact that I don't know anyone who's listening today, but each and every one of us has a unique blend of skills and life experiences and values and a personality that no one else has and no one else ever will. And once you hold on to that and remember that, you can realize that you can still be of worth even if you're not being employed. And if you keep that in your mind, that can at least help. It's still going to be difficult, and I acknowledge that, but if you can focus on that, you know, and a lot of it is what you tell yourself in your mind that can help you to manage the whole situation.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think it's a bit lazy sometimes. I think we're quite lazy as people when we meet people. Or what are you doing? What's your job? It just rolls off the tongue. And I think sometimes we don't even listen to the answer. So although you might be thinking, oh, they're asking me that, and you know, I've got nothing to say, actually, there's so much more that's interesting about you to be talking about. So yeah, not being so put off by that. I think that's such a good point. So we're going to say bye-bye to Janice. Thank you for joining us. At least you were able to respond to one of your questions. So thank you. Thanks, and we'll see you soon. And I'm sure we'll see you in a future webinar. Oh, yeah, great. So we're going to go on to the next question. And I can see some questions starting to come through, but we're going to ask our first questions first, and then we'll come to your questions. So my second question is, in a competitive job market where roles are fewer, what are your job search tips? And I'll go to Hira first this time. Can you hear me?
Being visible is really, really important. And having had to move from one country to another and starting from my leadership brand from literally ground zero where nobody knew me, visibility was really important for me. So I think when you are part of social media channels, and I would highly recommend LinkedIn, because that is the place where I made all my contacts, where I connected with people, and also to some degree Twitter. But make yourself known and, you know, write articles, share your opinions about different things which are happening, you know, right now, about different campaigns, and follow industry leaders. That's very important, because when I have some great reviews, thankfully, for both my different books, for both my books. And the way I did was that I reached out to influencers, but it's not something which happens overnight. You don't reach out to influencers on the first day and say, well, could you help me or support me? You have to build that relationship over time. Find those industry leaders, connect with them, follow them, appreciate their work, give before asking something in return. I think that's really important. But do make yourself visible, and don't be afraid to step up and ask for opportunities, because the worst you'll hear is no, right? And that no doesn't mean that it's going to be no forever. It could convert into a yes 6 months down the line. So be persistent about, you know, asking for opportunities and looking for ways in which you can step up and brand yourself better.
Fabulous. Carol, what do you think?
I would say utilize your network. I think it was Imperial College University that reported something like 75% of jobs are filled through the hidden job market, and that is where they're not publicly advertised. So oftentimes your connections may know people that can make introductions to you. So utilize your network. As Hira's mentioned LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, I highly recommend utilizing LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool for finding jobs, connecting with people. Think about the organizations that you would like to work at. Go to their company pages on LinkedIn, have a look at the people who work there, and look at the people who work there that you would like to connect with, and send them a connection request. And be visible on LinkedIn and with your network. Let people know that you're looking for work, and ask them if they know anybody that knows of any opportunities. And also meet up with people. I mean, I know we can't because of social distancing restrictions, but have virtual coffee chats with the people that you connect with on LinkedIn, and just get to develop and nurture those relationships. And also connect with recruiters on LinkedIn as well as headhunters as well, and develop and nurture those relationships.
Fantastic. Gosh, so many wonderful golden nuggets that you're all sharing. And Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about also being resourceful and thinking, okay, what can I do? I said earlier on about your self-worth doesn't just come from paid work. And one of the things that you could do is maybe volunteer. You could either volunteer, work with a volunteer organization, or do your shopping for an elderly neighbor or anything like that. Just to feel that, just to take the focus away from your own self and your own needs, and looking out to the needs of others. Certainly in my case, when I went through redundancy years ago, because I was a career coach, I decided to use my network and set up a job search program for the long-term unemployed, ironically. So I made the most of my time. So that meant that I had something that I could add to my CV by doing that. So therefore I felt that I was, being useful to others. So not only does it take the focus away from my own needs and attentions, helping others just really boosts my own well-being, really. So volunteering and looking to see what you can do for other people, and that's something that you can add to your CV.
Fantastic, such great ideas. And as you said, it makes you feel better at the same time, which in turn helps you be better at finding a role. I think the other thing is not to be too fixed. I think sometimes we get very fixed on job titles and roles and what they are, but actually your skills can be used in lots of different ways, and to think less around job titles and more about how your skills could be used in different sectors, industries, different types of professions. So being open-minded, I think, is a really good skill when you're thinking about jobs. And also, there's this gig economy now. Maybe you're going to have 3 part-time jobs instead of 1 full-time role, and that might give you a lot of variety. Meeting different people might be more interesting. So that traditional route that you might have thought about might not be where you go in the future. So my final question, before I open it up to questions from the audience: how can a coach help if you've been made redundant, been bullied or fired? I keep ending with Mark, so I'm going to start with you this time, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, what do you think, Mark?
I think with coaching, one of the key things about coaching is that it helps people to look forward and think about what actions and what next steps you can do. And the key thing about coaching is a coach can ask you really good, insightful questions that will enable you to come up with your own answers. See, a coach isn't going to tell you what you should do. It's about asking the right types of questions to enable you to come up with your own options and your own best way forward. And then you'll be more empowered to take action because it's something that you've got ownership of. So certainly one of the key things about coaching is being able to ask very good questions that you've probably never asked yourself before, that will help you to move forward.
Couldn't agree more, absolutely. And Hira, your thoughts?
I am unmuted. I am a strong believer in, and you laugh at this, but I do believe that if you go through a difficult period, I do believe that you need to give yourself time and, wallow in despair as much as you want. Take that time to feel better, do things which will make you feel better, and then move on. And as a coach, whenever I get a lot of clients, they come with a lot of baggage and they would like to vent out. So I think as a coach, you initially need to allow them to vent out and share their grievances so that they get out things from their system. But then you also have to draw a balance and know when to stop and tell them, now this is done, let's move over. And I think as a coach, you can really help them to come to terms with their feelings and then help them or facilitate them in moving on to the next step in the direction that they want to take. So that is a really important part as a coach.
Yeah, fantastic. So I hear that Mark was really speaking to those insightful questions that we ask as coaches, and you're really speaking to the cathartic experience of getting it all out before you move forward. And Carol, what are your perspectives?
Yes, so a coach can help you to manage your emotions and rationalize and put things into perspective, and think about what you can do next, and also to help you to identify your strengths, because when you're feeling that way, sometimes you don't see the good qualities and the strengths and the skills that you have, and a coach can help you to identify those and those transferable skills as well, and to create a CV that stands out, and they can help you with interview coaching and help you to stay motivated. And it's important that you do put your situation into perspective, because when you're feeling that way, it's so easy to just imagine that the worst possible outcome is going to happen to you, and you fear the worst because it's like you're in a place of unknown. You don't know what's next, you don't know what's around the corner. And I had a client who, when she came to me for coaching, her organization was going through a restructure and she faced her possible job loss. And when she came to me, she was having sleepless nights. Her skin was all flaky because of the stress that she was under. And what it turned out was that she thought that she was going to end up homeless, because she was imagining that her job would be made redundant, she wouldn't be able to pay her mortgage, and she would end up homeless. But by helping her to rationalize her emotions and put her situation into perspective, she was able to see that if she did get made redundant, then she could let out her spare bed. That she had plenty. No, first of all, she recognised she had plenty of skills and experience, so she shouldn't have any problem getting another job. And then I challenged her on that, and I said to her, "Well, just supposing you didn't get another job straight away, what could you do?" And then she said that she could rent out her spare bedroom. At least that would give her some income until she got something else. And then once she realised that she had options, that changed how she felt. And then when she changed how she felt, that changed how her perspective on her situation. And she felt so much more calmer and so much more optimistic about things.
Wonderful. Great to share a lovely example there. Thank you so much, Carol. I think there's so many ways in which a coach can help. I think one of the biggest ones is helping you feel confident. Quite often, if you've had a knock, what you end up doing is settling for something that's not as good when you go to the next role, because your confidence has been knocked. And I think the coaching really helps you to recognize your own self-worth and go for what you deserve. And instead of maybe bouncing back, as we've been using as a hashtag, bounce forward even better from the experience. And I think that's what coaches can really help you do. And I think quite often what will happen without a coach or without this kind of support is that you kind of diminish yourself because of the experience, and don't go for what you really deserve and what you're worth. And coaching generally is about realizing your potential, and the coaches here really help individuals to be able to do that. So I'm going to jump forward to the questions that we've had pre-submitted. The first one is how does one market yourself when you're newly disabled and nearing 60? Job options are more limited, and though giving good interviews, job offers are non-existent at the moment, she says. So she's disabled, she's nearing 60. She does good interviews, she says, but the job offers aren't coming forward. Who particularly wants to answer this question?
I'm happy to answer that. So first of all, what I would suggest is what is the feedback? Have you had feedback from those interviews? So you're doing really well to get to interview, so that's fantastic and well done for that. So what is the feedback? So obviously it's not your CV, or it's not the application process. So there must be something when you're being interviewed that maybe you're not getting across. And so if you've got the feedback, you can learn from that feedback. Well, what could you do differently? If you've not been given feedback, what I would do is recommend, whenever you go for an interview and you're unsuccessful, is to ask for that feedback, because without the feedback, it's difficult to know what you can do going forward. So if you haven't had feedback, I would suggest maybe going to the last interview that you had and asking them for feedback, and then looking at what that feedback is and what are the specific areas that you need to focus on in developing, so that when you are in an interview that you can get that across. And if you have had the feedback, again, look at what it is that you need to focus on, because you are doing something, you are doing things right, and you're getting to interview. And it might be that you're not necessarily selling yourself enough in the interview, because that is something that I often find that, and this is something that I particularly find with women, that they don't often sell themselves well in interviews. And oftentimes they don't talk about their personal achievements or what they've contributed. They talk a lot about the we, as in the team effort and what the team has achieved. And it's not that you disregard the team effort or the team achievement, but if you're wanting to sell yourself in an interview or wanting to get the best you across in an interview, then you do need to be promoting yourself. And so without knowing the ins and outs, I say to you to think about, well, what is it that you could be doing in the interviews that is not getting your best self across?
Thank you very much. Unless the other coaches want to add something particular, I'm going to move on from that one, if that's okay. Great. So the next question that we had pre-submitted was, I would like advice on how to authentically begin posting content, building a personal brand on LinkedIn when it isn't my usual style. I avoid all types of social media usually for improving my mental health, but have had to become a lot more active on LinkedIn due to looking for a new job. The green ring showing open to work doesn't seem to be enough, according to many great people I follow on LinkedIn. I personally don't feel confident in creating posts at the moment, perhaps a direct effect from being made redundant, and maybe others feel the same. So who would like to speak to this one? Mark's unmuted, maybe both. Okay.
Yeah, I think the clue is in the question, really, where you asked about how to authentically be on LinkedIn. And I think being authentic is really key. And I think when you're on LinkedIn, it can be a bit of a minefield for people who are not used to it, and it's not the easiest of websites necessarily to get your head around. But I think the key thing is if you're clear about the industry that you're wanting to work within, or maybe the type of company, it's just simply start by following those companies or following individuals. And if you get the opportunity in the little comment box, ask a question or respond to whatever discussions are going on or whatever they're posting. And I think if you go into LinkedIn with just a curiosity mindset, wanting to find information out, then it doesn't feel like you're promoting and trying to sell yourself. So it's just about finding information out, asking questions. If you get the chance to talk to an individual on LinkedIn, find out about how they got into their job role, what advice they would give to you, and just be authentic like that. So, don't necessarily put pressure on yourself to put amazing blog posts on or anything like that. Just be curious and ask questions.
Lovely, love that. I'm going to jump to the next question. I know, Hira, you could say loads about that, but I'm going to just jump. So if an employee leaves by resigning from their job due to a long-term sickness absence of 4 months and signed off by their doctor for things like stress, anxiety, work-related, number one, what are the best ways to present this on future application forms so that, your reason for leaving? And number two, what is the best way to verify a reference, and what type of reference would the HR department be giving, as it would not be possible to gain a reference, as in effect I was bullied out of my job, which was untenable. So they're asking, first of all, how do they did resign from their job due to long-term sickness, but they want to know how to put that on their CV, and also they don't think they're going to get a reference because ultimately they were bullied out. Who would like to speak to that?
I'm happy to go if no one else wants to. So with regards to your CV and your applications, on your CV you don't put why you leave a job. You just put what your experience has been, and so then that will hopefully get you to interview. And then in the interview they may ask you, well, what was the reason for leaving? And I would suggest just being honest. And letting them know what happened. You were going through a difficult time, but don't portray your employer in a bad way, because you don't want to be, as they call it, slagging off your employer to another employee, because that wouldn't come across well. But letting them see that there are things that you've learned from that and what those lessons are, and that you have moved on from that. And in terms of a reference, your employers are not allowed to give you a bad reference. They can give their opinion on, normally when someone is given a reference, they will ask questions like, on their performance, on their attendance, and that sort of thing. But they can't give an inaccurate or misleading reference. So it's about letting people say that you left the organization, and there are lessons that you've learned from that, and you have moved on.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. And also there are lots of different kinds of work you can go to. Something when we were talking about this before the session, Carol, you were saying is that when people go to a totally different industry, then the old reference isn't really that relevant anyway. So if you're going for exactly the same thing in exactly the same sector, it will become more important. But if you're able to pivot a bit and do something quite different, they don't care so much about that old reference. So, and the weight on it won't be so important. Hira, there's a question directly for you here. What were the things you carried with you every time you moved that helped you to start over? Oh, you're muted. Oh, it doesn't say you're muted, but
okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. So definitely it was a very challenging process for me because every time I would earn a certain income and then I would move the country and then I would be down to ground zero and then I had to start from scratch. It was difficult, but I think resilience is really, really important in that. And also patience. I did have to acknowledge that Rome wasn't built in a day. I have to, be patient. I will have to take time to build my brand. I cannot start earning overnight. And frankly, I didn't because it took me a couple of years to build my brand in each country that I moved to. Secondly, I think I never shied away from self-promotion. I did not fall for what you call the Tiara Syndrome, which is a term coined by Carol and Deborah, who are authors, and was later also used by Sheryl Sandberg. And Tiara Syndrome is basically doing good work and then waiting for somebody to come and place a crown on your head, because unfortunately it never happens. You have to go and grab that tiara for yourself, and you have to do it in authentically and respectful ways. It shouldn't sound like bragging, but if you have done something, then you have to share. And to the point on LinkedIn, I would connect this to the other question that I share a lot. I used to share a lot on LinkedIn, but in the beginning, I wasn't very comfortable about sharing articles. So I would share other articles, and sometimes it would just be simple shares, and other times they would be commenting on those articles and presenting my viewpoint, just adding 2 or 3 lines. And gradually, as I built up courage and following, then I started writing my own posts. But yes, mental health is important. So yes, social media is very important, but do take breaks from it. I take breaks from social media. And that's how I'm able to preserve my sanity. But yes, resilience, not being afraid to hear no, self-promoting, and then of course networking is what helped me in each country that I moved to.
Fabulous, great thoughts and great tips there, Hira. Thank you very much for anyone thinking about relocating. So we have a question here. How do you keep your, sorry, I'm just trying to do these in order. How do you keep your self-worth when you keep running into the same experiences at work due to bullying? How do you move away from blaming yourself? Who wants to respond to that one?
So I can answer that question. Oh, Carol, do you want to?
I can answer that because I have coached clients who have experienced bullying. One client who had been bullied in one organisation, gone on to another organisation, and the same thing was happening again. And the thing is, with bullying, it can knock your self-worth, and it can cause your resilience to drop. So it's a matter about how you can looking at how you can develop that resilience, and to maintain that self-worth. And oftentimes when people are bullying, it's not necessarily about the person that's being bullied, it's a lot about the bully, that there is often some insecurities that they have, and as a result of those insecurities, they are taking it out on other people. So it's about maintaining your self-worth and knowing that it's that person is that they may have insecurities as to why they choose to bully you. And so make sure that you and it might be worth speaking to somebody who can support you through it, so that you can maintain that resilience, increase your resilience, so that when people do things and say things to you, that you don't then internalize it and personalize it, that you are able to put it into perspective and look at the situation rationally. And if you are currently being bullied, what I would suggest is that you look at your organization's policies on bullying and harassment, because all organizations should have HR policies on bullying and harassment, and that will set out what it is that you need to, what you can do. If your organization is not very supportive in that way, depending on where you're located, if you're in the UK, there is an organization called ACAS, which can give you lots of advice and support on how you can manage that situation. And so I would say, don't personalize it, recognize that it's often about the bully themselves that have insecurities. It could be that they feel threatened by you. It could be that they've got other personal issues going on, that they take it out on other people. And so maintain that self-worth and increase your resilience, so that what they say and what they do to you does not affect you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to add one thing to that. You're saying it's happened more than once to you, and I think when something happens again, you put yourself back into that same situation and think, oh my goodness, I'm the same person I was, but you came out of one experience of bullying, so you're already stronger than you were the first time. You're already not the same person you were the first time you experienced the bullying, and I think that's really important to recognize that you are already stronger, more resilient, more knowledgeable. You've learned from that last experience, and so this second experience won't impact you in the same way. You already have strategies to deal with it, and I think that's really important to remember, because I think, and like redundancy or any situation, when you experience it again, you automatically put yourself back to the same situation you had before, but it's never the same. That you've moved and you've grown and you've developed, so you already have more, you're more able to deal with it. And I think that's important to remember and hold on to. So we had a question here. Janice mentioned focusing on your values after bullying or redundancy. If it's your values that have led you to putting all your heart and soul into work and standing up for what is right, and you recognize that you would not have been bullied or driven out of your job if it wasn't for your values, it's doubly sad. How best to deal with such a situation? Yeah.
I would like to ask that question. So I think if you have stood up for your values, I believe it is sad that you have been made redundant or if you're bullied out of the workplace, but you should be very proud of yourself, because standing up to your values is a very courageous thing to do. And temporarily you might be feeling disappointed and sad and depressed, but in the long term, it is going to be very good for your own mental health, because you have not compromised on your values. You stood up for what is most important to you, and eventually you will find a place which is more aligned with your values. And I think this incident should actually be a learning point. Just take it as a place where something happened and you realize that this is something which you cannot stand for. And this, in fact, is a very good learning experience in knowing what you can stand up for and what you can't. So I think that is also a good way of recognizing what you want and what you don't want. And then moving forward, you will eventually find an organization or a place that is aligned with your values, and that's going to be very, very good for your own mental health.
Yeah, I was just to add to that, really, the alternative is to stay in a job that's not in line with your own personal values, and that means you're not being authentic, you don't have the integrity, and you're pretending to be something that you're not, and that's not a good place to be. So yeah, I think that it takes bravery to stand up for your values, but I think it's always the right thing to do.
Love that. Great points. I think the saying is a weed is a flower growing in the wrong place. And sometimes we're just not in the right place, and that's okay to get up and move and walk away and be somewhere where people will appreciate the flower that we are, I think. So, so we have here a question. Being bullied is a different experience from being made redundant. How do the coaches change their approach in these situations? And what specialist training have they undertaken?
I mean, I can go. So in terms of training, I did a master's in coaching psychology, which looked at the psychology of the self and how we adapt to different situations. So when I'm coaching somebody who has experienced bullying, it's helping them to develop the resilience, increase their resilience, and how they manage that situation. So oftentimes when someone's been bullied, their resilience is low, their confidence has been knocked, and their self-worth has been affected. So it's about helping them to develop in those areas so that they not only act it, but they feel it as well, that they have that self-belief in themselves, that they are able to do whatever it is that they want to do, and not to let that experience keep them down.
Great. Anyone else want to speak to that?
Yes, so like Carol, I have a master's in human resources, and then I was accredited by International Coach Federation, and I am a certified neuro-linguistic practitioner. And all these certification qualifications I did, they did teach us strategies how to deal with different situations, because every situation is unique and every situation requires a customized approach. So for example, in bullying, I would ask the clients not just to develop resilience, of course, which is the most important thing, but also know when to confront and not to confront. I think that is a very, very important question. And how exactly do you confront? So giving them the tools and strategies to be able to step up and stand up for themselves in a respectful way, and bring to the attention of the HR or the people involved, or step up yourself. So there's an entire procedure, and I can also share an article which I wrote in this regard, how to deal with bullying. And of course, redundancy has some other skills, which is, promoting yourself, making your brand more visible, building your leadership brand. So every situation is different.
Yeah, and I think the thing that, oh, sorry, Hira, I didn't interrupt you. The thing to remember about coaches is we use tools and approaches. We don't have to have been through the situation. And the tools and approaches we use are applicable in so many different situations, because what we're doing is we're helping you and guiding you through a situation rather than training you or telling you what to do. And I think that's really important to recognize that difference between some other forms of helping that exist out there. So I'm just going to keep looking because there's so many questions and comments coming through. I hope I haven't missed anything, but do you have any suitable resources for building CV as a midlife job seeker? Also, are there any resources on confidence building and self-esteem, transitioning that the panel can recommend? Also, please, could I have the contact details of all the coaches? So someone's asked a lot. So we have, if you wouldn't mind, Snetta, sharing the diverse coach directory link again, so that everyone can get in touch with these coaches. But basically, we're being asked about tools, and I think there's been a couple of questions about tools. I'm going to start with you, Mark, first of all. Yeah, any tools that you think that would be helpful? And also, just to let the audience know, I've posted in a couple of blogs, some research I've done, and I think some of the other coaches are posting in some links as well.
Yeah, I suddenly feel unprepared now with the tool question. There are tools around. So with a CV, I don't necessarily point any individuals to a specific website for doing a CV. I mean, I know that for young people that I maybe recommend the Read website because they have a good school leaver CV template. But what I always say to individuals is with a CV is that the CV just needs to be relevant for the job that you're applying for. There's no one size fits all. So yeah, you can follow a website and do an amazing looking CV, but if an employer is looking for it and it's not got the skills and qualities they're looking for, then it's not going to be relevant for that job. So I think that's the key thing, really. But there are so many different resources out there for a CV. But the key thing is making sure it's relevant for the job you're going for.
Fabulous.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think they're looking for any tools as well. It doesn't just have to be, because they were talking about confidence building, self-esteem, or any tools. If you think of anything else, Mark, just post in the chat. That would be great. Might have some things on your website. I'll go to you, Hira, next.
So I'm a writer, so I write a lot of articles. So I have posted links to articles. I have written an article in 2021 beginning of a Decision Island on bouncing back, and it has a lot of coping strategies within the article which can help overcome any issues that you may be facing. So I hope you can have a look at the article, and this could give you some tools to help you in the process.
Lovely, thank you. And Carol?
Again, I write lots of articles, particularly on LinkedIn. I've been named a LinkedIn Top Voice UK for the past 4 years running. So if you go to my profile on LinkedIn, there's lots of articles on there that give tips and advice about developing confidence when you're searching for a job, how you can just search for my profile. There's lots of articles on there. In terms of skills and developing your skills, I know the UK government, I don't know if everybody's in the UK, has got some initiatives at the moment about reskilling people. So go to gov.uk website and have a look on there to see if there's anything which is applicable to you, because we are going through a big shift at the moment in terms of work and people having to be reskilled. So the government has put resources into reskilling people that have been disaffected. So have a look on there as well to see if there's anything on there.
Thank you. We have one last question around maternity. So have you any advice for someone who was made redundant during maternity leave, trying to get back into work? I'm now in a position where I'm feeling like I have mum brain and I'm not articulating myself in the way I know I can. I know I have a solid employment history. I've been successful but struggling to even get an interview, even with what I've been told is a solid CV. So someone in terms of the maternity aspect.
What you're going through is very natural. I think after pregnancy and delivery, we all get mommy tracked and, have a developed mommy brains. I still have one, I feel, after 10 years. But I think it's very important to realize that what you're going through is a temporary phase and you need to reassert your confidence and your self-esteem in yourself. Because if you have a brilliant CV, all you need to do is, literally question your own limiting beliefs, build that confidence back up, take help from a coach or a peer mentor or anybody who can help you in making you believe in yourself again. I think that's really important. Anybody, your cheer squad who can tell you, yes, you got this. I think that's really going to help you. And after that, you need to systematically find and maybe share your story on LinkedIn. I mean, who knows, if you share it authentically and share that this is what happened without naming anybody, you might get a fantastic response for different organizations who would be willing to help you get back into the game.
Fantastic, fantastic. And anyone else want to say anything to that? No, fantastic. I think we've got through all the questions. Apologies if we haven't. We've done our very best. I always ask my coaches to leave us with a final coaching question. So I want to ask you, what question should individuals be asking themselves at the moment if they're job searching and they're in that situation where they've left not under the circumstances they would have liked to? I'll start with Hira.
I believe it's very important when you go through such an incident. It's very important to be able to forgive yourself first and be kind to yourself and know it's not your fault. And then to be also find the grace to understand that whatever happened to you was a result of various situations which perhaps were not in that person's control. And I'm not saying to forgive whatever bad happened to you, but I'm just saying acknowledging that there could be, the context of the situation and understanding it from that point of view will make you understand that whatever happened to you was a result of various factors which were not in your control. So the question would be, what is a more enabling belief to view this situation, or how else can I view this situation?
Lovely. I'll go to Mark next.
Okay, question is, in what way could your recent experience be the best thing that's ever happened to you?
Love that, love that. And Carol?
What I would say is oftentimes when we're going through adversity like job loss, bullying, or you've been fired, we can personalize it and think that it's us. And as a result of that, that affects how we feel, because we're very much led by our emotions, and the way that we think affects how we feel and react and behave according to how we're feeling. But by changing your perspective, it can change how you feel. So what I would say is, what is a more helpful perspective for you to have about your situation?
Lovely. And I think the question I would share is, what relationships can I nurture that can support me during this time? Yeah. So thank you so much. We really hope it was useful for you today. I think when I share the video, I will also share the chat, because there's so many links that have been shared that you can go to after this session. We wish you every success, whether it's that your confidence has been knocked, whether it's that you are looking for a role right now. There is something out there for you. There really is. And if you persevere, but also take action, you'll get there. And any feeling that you're experiencing is completely normal. So don't beat yourself up, just go with it. Thank you so much. A huge thank you to Carol, to Mark, to Hira. Do look at the Diverse Coach website. I know you've probably been tweeting them anyway, but the Diverse Coach website has a range of amazing coaches, including these three wonderful people here. And you can find the support that you're looking for. So take care, everyone, and thank you so much. And Hira and Mark and Carol, if you just stay back for one moment, don't immediately leave.